need to understand the place of saving. You need to understand the place of budgeting. And you see, for high net worth persons, or for rich, wealthy person, budgeting is on another level because that is when you start hearing things like private office, or they'll tell you they have a family office. Then you have consulting firms actually consulting for them to understand how they are spending money, how they will spend their money, how they would uh, plan succession planning, and all those things. So you find out that this thing is not about because I am making 100,000 or I'm making 200,000. That's why they are saying I should budget, or that's why they are saying I should save, or saying I should invest. It is applicable across board, right? And if you learn to do it with the little you have now, you'll be able to do it with the plenty that you would have as time goes on. So it's an habit. Like I said yesterday, it's an habit. It's a skill that we have to build as men. We have to be deliberate in building it. And you know, the very awesome thing about this thing, about finance, is that you can be working within the financial space, but your finances is terrible, right? You can actually be advising people about how to improve their finance, but you have a terrible finance. Your financial health is in a terrible state. And that's because if you do not take it upon yourself to learn and do what you're doing, or do what you're saying, it may not have any impact for you. It's like saying that, the reality that because someone is a banker does not necessarily mean that person is rich. Or let's say someone is a cashier in a bank, is a teller in a bank, works as a teller in a bank, does not mean that that person has the money. Right? The person could have counted millions, but it does not necessarily mean the person has those millions. The person has to work to get those millions. That's how it is also for us. So don't think that we are saying all of this because this is the level you are right now. You do not have so much, or what you have is probably you're contented with it. You do not see the need for more. It's because there is more that you can get, and for you to get that more and sustain it, you need to learn these things. You need to know these things. And we talked on the budgeting, the savings, and why invest yesterday. And moving on to the bits that we'll talk about today, right? Just to start off, I'll just run through this shortly. It's very quickly, we'll just run through it. It says stewarding finances with wisdom and purpose. One of the things we said earlier, or that we had as key markers to work with as young men that knows God and are looking to transform their finances, is we said build wealth with wisdom and diligence, build stability and purpose. Now we're saying stewarding these finances with wisdom and purpose. You need to take on a couple of these things. There are things that are said one way or the other in as at yesterday, right? But it's just own them bring them in again, own them in into us. Is that you need to define the family vision. I was saying it yesterday that I would be very deliberate to talk about finances for us as young men, even from a family point of view. And I appreciate that Samuel was able to note that, and he said that as well. See, even if you're not married now, there's a necessity that you are looking at it from that point of view of when I'm married, because we're talking about long-term growth, right? Not just on the short term. When I'm married, what does it look like? If you're building that finances, if you're trying to build for stability, you're trying to build with purpose, you need to build for what it will look like, not just for what it is right now, but what it will look like. And part of those things is defining your family vision. Clarify what good life means. No, we want to live a good life. We want to live a comfortable life. For you, you need to be able to define what that means. You see, if you have that principally at the back of your mind, it would trickle down into how you are committing your finances and where you are committing your finances. You would understand, if you're already a family man, you would understand that saving, opening a trust account for your children, no matter how small you are putting it in there, you understand that that is you trying to define good life for your children. Like one of the key things that we almost always say or hear around is that it is a very bad uh, planning decision for a man that all things being equal, when your wife got pregnant and it is time for delivery and you're running around to look for money for delivery, all things being equal, it is not an emergency kind of delivery. Your wife is not having to go through procedures that will just cost you unnecessarily higher amount that you have envisaged. If all things remains equal, this kind of expense should not meet you as a shock because you've had at the minimum 9 months, or you've had 9 months basically to prepare for that day. So it should not meet you as a shock in defining the family vision, in clarifying what good life means. Even for you as a man, for your family, you see, healthcare is part of the things we're talking about there. You should be able to already know what it will cost to get that done, to have that happen. And I'm sorry that I'm not taking it in the line with what you're seeing on the screen, but the truth is healthcare is very important. So whether you are in Nigeria or you're outside, even in other climes, the healthcare can be way more expensive than what we have currently in our country, right? As a young man, you're not married yet. You are probably not employed within the corporate space that healthcare is part of your package. You have an HMO plan that is structured into your package. If you do not have that as it is for you as a young man, you're probably doing a job that there's no healthcare plan, or you are self-employed. You need to think about those kind of things. As much as we understand and we pray that we're in good health, the Lord is keeping us, the Lord is sustaining us. You need to understand the possibility of when there is need for healthcare. And it's even beyond that. Accidents happen, or there is this kind of need or the other. Your basic healthcare, your basic annual health check is important. So in all of those things, you have to plan for them because none of those things will come cheaply. On these calls, we have doctors, right? So as much as we are praying to God for sound and complete health, you know that if God decides not to allow you go to the hospital, then our brothers that are doctors, medical doctors, yeah, they have nothing to do. Eh? And we would not want that for Dr. AY, right? So there is the understanding that even as we're saying that we are children of God, we are people that God is helping. Your health care is important, and in your planning, in stewarding your finances, you need to put that into perspective. Your housing, I was saying it yesterday about how when the thought of coming into that marriage was ringing in my head, I started thinking about the kind of house that I would take, what would it look like, and all of that. For you as well, whether you're ready to move on to that next stage or not, it is wrong. It's an aberration for you as a young man that you're already out of your parents' house, even if you're still in your parents' house, that you do not start planning what it looks like to take care of housing. You need to be able to analyze what you're getting, how you're getting it, to determine clearly, how would I do my housing? How would I pay for rent? How would rent come? It should not be a shock to you. A month to rent, that is when you are now thinking, how would I do this thing? It should not be, because we are in a climate that you have 12 months to prepare for rent. So you are not paying rent monthly. If you are in an environment, if you are in a country where rent is monthly, now, how would you do? How would you get through that? I believe in Ghana, their rent is monthly, so you are not even going as far as the UK or the US, right? Even just close by to us. So if we're in a place where it is now yearly, I think sometimes last year they began to talk about whether in Lagos that they may change it to create policies about house rent being monthly. If that happens all of a sudden, are you covered enough? Do you have enough plans? Are you able to steward your finances enough to deal with that? Education, whether you're a family man or not, you're a young man, do you have plans for education? As a family man or someone that will become a family man, are you already thinking what it will look like to take care of the education of your children? Do you even understand at the minimum what these things are? What are the packages that are available? Right now you're spending money on every and anything. Let's hope that the Lord is blessing you so much as a young man that is not married yet, and you're thinking to yourself, what do I even want to say? All this money that I'm saving, what should I be saving it for? You may be asking yourself that question, but there is blessedness in you thinking about casting that your bread. Lord, just cast it, because there are days that are coming that you would need it. So you're already preparing for your security and future opportunities, prioritizing those kind of things. So it is necessary that you define what is the kind of good life that you want for yourself and the family that will come from you. You define it, and it will help you guide how you're spending money. It will teach you how to be. You're not necessarily miser. You're not. The Yoruba man will say, "Oh, kì í ṣe pé o láhun." The English that will properly translate that I don't have right now, right? The closest is to say you are being miser, or you're miserly, spending miserly, and or frugal. You're frugal with your spending. I think that communicates well. It's not about whether you need to be frugal with your spending right now and not spend anyhow. We're saying spend wisely, save wisely, invest wisely. That's what we're talking about. Now, in building financial protection, you know that you need to have stability. That things do not just hit you anyhow because you already have a savings within that band. What are the things that you are committing yourself to? What are the things that you are having as obligations? I was talking yesterday how some of us, because we're believers, you're hanging there. You have this fellowship, you have that fellowship, you have that family, you have that commitment here and there. The question is, do you know it's possible, it's needed rather that you will review the places that you are committed to? Some of us, your commitment is the things that you have subscribed to. Some persons have subscription everywhere. You are subscribed to Netflix, you are subscribed to Prime Video, you are subscribed to this streaming platform, that streaming platform, you're subscribed to that one, you're subscribed to you are subscribed to YouTube Music, you are subscribed to Apple Music, you also subscribed to Spotify. Or you do not even know that you are subscribed, but they are removing your money because you have not paid attention to review those things. So you need to consider them very well. What are you committed to? You have also put yourself in commitment to your fellowship back in school, to your fellowship while you are in secondary school, to the alumni body, to this, to that. You need to understand, you need to review those things and see what would I commit my resource to? What should I commit my resource to while still fulfilling purpose as it should be? That is where the wisdom comes in. And all of this still find itself within acting with discipline. Acting with discipline. I talked about us, the assignment I gave us yesterday. I really do hope that everyone tried their best to do that assignment. See, tracking your spending, setting a budget will help you to reduce waste. Because you will see the point of waste. You will see the point that you should not necessarily be spending money on. You should not necessarily be committing as much resources as you are committing to it. You may feel right now that if you do not use 40 gig in a month, you will not have effectively utilized your phone. But there's a possibility that at the level you are, you may need to watch it. Probably God has even been trying to deal with your addiction with your phone. And one of the best ways to help you deal with it is for you to reason up and reduce how much you are even subscribing. No, you need to analyze those things. Do I really need 75 gig per month? Do I really need 120 gig per month for browsing? Some persons will say, no, I will do weekly subscription. At the end of the day, when you aggregate it, you see you have spent more because that your weekly subscription finishes in 3 days and then you subscribe again before the week ends. You need to understand those things and see how, even in this seemingly looking after your finances, God is also already dealing with other things in you. We talked about understanding your income and not planning on on income that is not certain. Assign your monthly income across essentials, savings, investment. If there is debt, yes, family priorities, with flexibility for life changes. So please, these are important things that we need to pay attention to. And then, of course, invest for long-term growth. Invest for long-term growth. We'll be talking a bit more on investment as we go on, right? And the caveat I will put, which we expect everywhere whenever anybody is talking about investment, is I will not tell you invest in this, invest in that. It is an advice how you should go around investment. Right? And that's what we would eventually do as we're going through these uh, learnings. That's what we would eventually do. So, grateful financial moves for emerging men, right? So we've talked about savings, and it's not so much of a it's not so much, there's not so much to talk around there than for you to understand the need to save. If you're saving, understand what you're saving for, and don't have the intention of using the savings for miscellaneous needs. If you have that intention, like I said yesterday, you're saving for raining days, rain will be falling every day. That's when you would just want to use it by force, by fire, right? So please, we need to be very, what's the word now? We need to be very You need to be very disciplined around that. You need to be very disciplined. Now, when it comes to investment, there are several things or there are several ways investment work comes in. But the typical ones that you will find around in our times, right? It has been, but it's been re-echoed again in recent times. And as we move into this phase of our lives as young men, you realize that there's the real estate, there's the stocks, there's a bond, and of course, money market and all those things. Right? Within your money market, you have expressions. But what is real estate? It is as good as you're buying lands, you're buying, if you have the money, you're buying houses, or you're even buying real estate stocks. Yesterday, I was talking about an investment I made some 3 or 4 years ago that right now has more than 100% in value, has grown more than 100%. So that is that is an example, and that investment was actually a real estate investment in the sense that the the building or that real estate, it has been converted, or it has been noted as stocks, and then you buy into it, and as much as you want to buy the shares you're buying, you can see how much it is and what is coming into, right? And you see, the beautiful thing about these things, they are not far from us, they are not far-fetched. This stock that I even bought, the real estate stock I bought, was not, I did not need to have your CS numbers. And we'll come to that later, right? You did not need to have your Nigerian Stock Exchange ID, all those IDs that you need for you to trade in stock or for you to have stocks, to buy stocks. I didn't have to do that. Just a simple going on PiggyVest or going on Cowrie Wise, you would see some of these things, some of these investments that you can put into. You would see them. They're not far, they are close by. And like we said yesterday, you need to, as the Lord is helping you to move from not even doing anything about your finance as much as you should, to you learning to budget and spending wisely, to you moving to saving correctly and saving wisely, you need to move to that place of investing, because investment is where the layman, they will just tell you typically where your money, you sleep and your money works for you, right? And it is where you need to come into, is where we need to come into, right? Please, you don't have to have millions before you invest. You don't have to have hundreds of thousands before you can invest. You can start from as small as possible, so that you're learning that habit, you're learning what it looks like. If you want to create a generational wealth, if you want to create that long-term growth, you want to create that long-term stability, you need to realize that you will move from just budgeting, from just savings to actually investing. Because that's where that stability can come. That's where you would, as you're getting your salaries, Your salary is making more money for you. So real estate is one of those good examples. We know we're in time where we are seeing clear appreciation of real estate. And I'm sure a couple of persons on this call, it will be very rare that there's someone on this call that does not know or have one way or the other if they wanted to buy land, if that they will not know whom to reach out to. It may be that you do not have the money, but somehow there's a way to just connect with someone that can help you on how to get lands. Is the land genuine? Is it right? Is everything right about it? I may not be able to say, but at least you would have one way or the other if you wanted to do that. So at the minimum, you have that visibility to what it takes to invest in real estate. The question is then, is that a right place to go? Because when it comes to investment, a principal thing that needs to work, that you need to realize and ask yourself is, what is my risk appetite? What is my risk appetite? And that risk appetite thing is the layman way to say it is, how much can I let go and it will not pay me? So if you do not understand the big English risk appetite, the simple thing is, how much can I let go and it will not pay me? That's the simplest way. So if you look at yourself and you say there's this 10,000 naira, if I drop it now and it does not come back to me, I have no issues with it. No, you have probably borrowed somebody money. You've lent money, right? You've lent people money. They borrow money from you. Now, are you able to let go of that money and it does not pain you? You are not remembering every 12 hours of a 24 hours. It's already speaking to your risk appetite. Someone comes to you and say, borrow me 30,000. You say, no, it's 5,000 I can borrow you. You're already analyzing your risk appetite. Because you can then translate that into investment across any form of investment, actually. When it comes to real estate, what does your risk appetite looks like? When it comes to stock, when it comes to bonds, when it comes to money market, what does your risk appetite look like? Are you that person that have a very high risk appetite? You can dare the impossible, like you can push. And you see, a very good thing is our faith can also translate into this. Our faith can translate. If you're a man of faith, that you believe the impossible to happen, you may want to translate that faith into how you invest as well. But you will do it reasonably, because the market may not respond. Market will not, let me not even say may not, market will not respond to your whims and shifts, how you feel. You may not be able to command the market the way you are commanding the day. Because there are a lot of persons in the market that are also commanding it, right? So, what does your risk appetite looks like? That is a question you must ask yourself when you are coming into investment, because it then helps you to analyze what you want to do. Are you someone that is more comfortable with keeping your 100,000 in bank as savings than carrying that 100,000 and putting it in an investment? Are you someone that will be more comfortable with taking 10,000 out of that 100,000 savings and invest it, or 50,000 or 80,000 or the whole 100,000, or nothing safe, and just keep my money back? Let me be seeing it. So you need to analyze that and understand that yourself if you have not done that. Now, if we come to stocks, right? Well, let me start from the money market, right? Your money market simply cuts across your treasury bills, your commercial papers, your your typical mutual funds. So there's what we call mutual funds as well, right? Yeah, and the question there is, how much do you have? What is the entrance to the market? What does it look like? Your typical commercial paper can run you into into millions before you can buy it, right? But you know that the returns on it is fixed, is this, is that, it is clear. Treasury bills, it is backed by government. So you know that there is assurance on your money. The returns may be lower, but you know that there is assurance you will get your money. You get your returns, you get your money, right? The money market bit, or the mutual funds rather, you find a couple of you have institutions that would have those kind of listings. You have the Stanbic mutual funds, you have them, a whole lot of them, right? You buy into those mutual funds, there are returns on them. The returns can be very small because it's mutual funds, right? Money market. The returns can be very small, but it is still better than savings. They will typically have terms, they will have tenors, they will have their own management fees that they will take from the monies and all of that. But you know that it's not just your money you'll be getting back. You'll be getting returns on those money. Some of them is on a monthly basis that you'll be getting returns on your money. And if I do not even go so far off, if I just stay with as simple as piggy vest, as cowrie wise, do you know if you keep your money in piggy vest, at the end of the month, you have interest coming in on your money. Like you just put it there. You have some interest coming in. So depending on how large the money you have put there is, it then talks about what is the interest rate that will come on your money. So even if you're not ready to go into actual investment, we're saying it might even be more reasonable for you, instead of keeping your money, saving your money in your banks, no matter how small it is, keep it in any of these trusted financial institutions. They're not necessarily banks, right? But they are financial institutions that have gained those credibility over the years. Put your money there. Let that small interest just come in. I know some of us are already familiar with these things. You are familiar with you using your safe lock, and you understand that if you use a safe lock, depending on the length or the tenor that you want to lock the money, there's an interest that will come on it. If that is what you are comfortable with doing, please do it. But understand that you need to move to that point where your money moves. Your money is able to return to you more than what you have. Because, see, you may not be able to control how for salaried people, for people working within the corporate space, or people that have employments that are salaried, you may not be able to control how often your salary will grow. You may be working in an environment where they will do inflationary growth on your salary every year, or they may not. You may also be working in a place where you understand that the promotions come rapidly, and when it comes rapidly, it comes with some increase. So you know that your income would increase by that level, but you cannot be waiting for that level of increase for you to have a change in what your income will look like. Perhaps you're also doing a job that occasionally something extra comes in. The question is that all you're waiting for to augment your income, or you are looking into means like investment that will help you increase your income so that you can fulfill more things that needs to be done? You can fulfill mandate in all these things that we have talked earlier about, defining what good life will look like for you and your family. So please, you may find it very difficult to come into some of the things I will still be talking about, but at the minimum, do yourself the good that the little that some of these financial institutions, non-bank financial institutions are offering, you're able to gain access into it. You're able to launch into it and get some of those goodies and get some of those good things. So we've talked about real estate. We've talked a little bit about the money market, where you will find your mutual funds, you will find your treasury bills, you will find your commercial papers and the likes. So within that same space, you have your equity trusts. The equity trust fund, and what makes that different is that you have more returns coming in when you're dealing with ETFs, right? Because ETFs are basically that this trading entity, they go ahead and put together a couple of stocks on the stock market, whether the Nigerian stock market or any of the foreign stock market. They pull together, invest in a couple of stocks, and then they create their own stock that people buy into. So you'll be hearing about the Stanbic ETF, you have the Vertiva, you have So many of them, there's GTB own as well, and a whole lot of other companies that have those returns coming in from the stock that they have created. And what they do is they take the risk away of you having to decide what entity do I want to invest in. Do I want to invest in Dangote? Do I want to invest in a Bua cement? Do I want to invest in this? Do I want to? You find that difficult to do yourself because you do not understand what the market looks like. In fact, it's possible what I'm saying right now is jumping over your head. But the truth is, there are some persons that is their work. They just create those stocks for you that you can buy into, and then there are returns that you get. So ETF is also one of those things that you can look into. I go through Instagram and I see a whole lot of persons giving advice on stocks, and it's very funny and very strange that I see that a whole lot of that is more from the women perspective. You see the Christian woman stock, the Christian woman finance, a whole lot of them that are providing those guidance to women, but not so much that is targeted towards the men, the men folk. But you see, the good thing about these stocks is they are not restricted to man or woman. If you enter Instagram and you're seeing stock explanations and investment explanations by a woman, listen to it and pick what you need to pick. Because if you buy into those things, you would actually see those returns. We'll talk a bit of practicality also later about how if you have just this particular amount, how can you diversify it, or how can you uh, allocate it to get something better in return. We'll talk about that going as we continue in this today. But you see, I just finished, or I'm just talking about ETFs. ETFs helps you to take some of the risk away from you. The consideration of saying, I was saying yesterday that in investment, it can go any way. You can invest 100 naira, and in 1 year's time, it is now 1,000 naira. Or in 1 year's time, it is now 10 naira. Your 100 naira is now 10 naira. It can go either ways. So, because you do not have enough information, or you are not knowledgeable enough about what you should consider, what stock rather you should invest in within the Nigerian stock exchange, or the London stock exchange, or whichever one, the New York stock exchange, anyone outside there that you want to go into, because you don't have enough knowledge to decide. You can go into the ETFs where they have prescribed their own fund or their own ETFs and their own stocks, and you buy into those based on their performance. You get returns. Of course, they will charge their management fees and all of those kind of things, but you will get returns. So it sort of takes some of the risk or away from you. You are not thinking so much about that. That is a possibility that you may want to consider. When it then comes to actual trading, or not necessarily trading, but you actually going into the stock market yourself, buying those stocks, that is where you find the opportunities of either using a stockbroker. We'll get there later in these slides, or you're doing your stock trading apps. Example being things like your Bamboo. I'm sure most of us on this call, we should have heard about the Bamboo app before. There's the Bamboo app, there's the Rice Vest, they're just everywhere. But typically, one of the most common one right now among just young people is the Bamboo app, right? You are able to, within 24 hours, have an account with the stock exchange. You have an ID that is able to help you to then buy stocks. You're able to buy stocks, and when you buy those stocks, as it performs or as it moves, as things are moving in the market, you can decide to trade them, whether you want to sell or you want to buy more, depending as you have capacity. You're beginning to look at those kind of things. So that's what you will typically find within your stocks. Your bonds is a different market in itself again, because you will find there are federal government bonds, there are corporate bonds. So companies can decide to issue bonds. This is them saying, give us money, and then there are interest that will come on those bonds, and eventually you get your money back, your investment in those bonds, you will get it back. Right. So That is also another part, but of course, it speaks to how much of the risk and the money that you have before you can go into all those kind of places. Essentially, what we're talking about is diversification because you are then thinking so much about how to diversify your funds, how to spread your funds. I've said here that real estate can help you build long-term wealth through value growth and steady income. Because the thing about real estate, if it's that you buy a land, you understand that you're waiting on it to appreciate. That is the one of the key reasons why you would have bought a land or you buy an house. If it's that you buy a house, depending on how God blesses you, right? It's a land, no matter how small it is, you're hoping that it would appreciate in value. And those things that you would need to learn is about where is this thing? Where is this real estate? Where is it? Why am I buying this land? What's the assurance around this land I'm buying? Is it legitimate? Is it factual? Is everything about it complete? So you do not fall into those shady things, right? And then your risk appetite worsen off because now you have been beaten once and you are many times shy, right? From the point of view of stock, we say that stock will give you ownership in well-run companies and can reward patience over time. Because the thing about stocks is that you would within the space, the finance space, you will hear different things about what stock is. They'll tell you that some stocks are dividend stock. Some other stocks, they are just meant for you to hold them. They grow over time, right? They are value stocks because they help you to increase your value. So you find a typical stock, banking stocks in recent time, they'll tell you that those are dividend stocks because they would almost always pay dividend. They have enough cash flow, so they are almost paying dividend every year. Right? But some stock, they will just help you to increase value. You may not be getting dividend every year from those stocks when you buy the stock, but the value will be increasing so that when you want to sell it, you probably bought the stock at 100 naira 10 years ago, and now you want to sell it. The stock has grown to maybe 1,000 naira. You have grown value over the years, and you have an increased value from holding that shares. They may not have been paying dividend out of that 10 years, they may not have paid dividend for 6 years. So you are not getting returns as it is, but by the time you want to sell it, you have so much returns. We're talking about long-term growth, right? This is one of those expression of long-term. Bonds are typically not going to be considered as long-term options because your typical bonds they usually would have a lifespan of less than a year. Sometimes for some of these ones, for some of the corporate ones, some can grow much longer than that. Your investment into them you may not have so much strength to invest into some bonds and commercial paper because the entry into it can be very huge. It can be so much money, right? But you understand that those ones can help you to get income back, returns back quickly, faster than some stock would help you get value back. So understanding these things are very key. They are important. You may not have the funds now, but you need to start learning it. You need to start understanding it so that when you have the funds, you understand where to channel them to. And one of the ways to do that is even we finish this session today, you do not have any of these stock trading apps, right? You do not have RiceVest, you do not have Bamboo, any other one, right? You download them, just start and even understand what is going on there. If it is just 10,000 naira you have, put it there and your check around, you're listening to several investment clips on Instagram, on YouTube, can just sort of guide you into what you should commit your money to. You understand that even if you lose the 10,000 naira, it might not pay you so much, but it already opens you to what it means to do those things, what it means to have those options. So you're already learning towards when you have the money. So this is just a quick thing I just said about how to access investment. You have the stock trading apps and you have your established stock brokers or investment houses, depending on how much you want to go into or how much you have. We would say typically for us younger Nigerians, young men like this, please just stay with the stock trading apps. Take your Bamboo, take your Rice Vest, If you want to invest in those platforms, invest. Or if you're doing ETF, if it's ETF you're trying to do, you check in with those specific companies. If it is the Stanbic fund that you want to do, you check with it. If it's Vetiva, I think now say Vetiva is traded on Bamboo too. So you check those things and just do small thing within your capacity, because if you want to say you want to go to established stockbrokers like Mary Stem, how much do you have? You may not even be able to enter the building in the first place. But with your small money that is growing by God's grace, stay within the stock trading app. People are doing millions even on the stock trading app without going into the stock, without going to the investment houses and established stockbrokers, right? So just they are not so much they are not difficult to work with, they are not difficult to learn. So please, let's try to just open ourselves better to these possible opportunities, right? Now, I just did something small to just give us a very quick look of these things we talked about. So your stock, what it offers is it offers ownership in listed companies with upside and dividends, right? Upside meaning that you have value on the stock. Dividend means you have income when they declare dividends. So you're able to get incomes, returns on the stocks that you are holding, right? Now, long-term wealth builders who can tolerate volatility. Those are the person's stocks is best for, because the share price of a company can move in any direction depending on what is happening in the business. That an MD can resign today and that will affect the shares of an entity listed on the stock exchange, because it communicates something. A major shareholder can decide to dump his shares and then it affects the share price. Someone that is very influential in the environment can decide to buy shares in a company and then it affects the share price. So it can be very volatile. That's the thing about shares, right? So within our context, staying invested over time rather than trading emotionally is what you need to do. You cannot be following what's the word now? What everybody is doing. Everybody is buying these shares. Let me go and buy. So, for instance, a typical example was there's this entity on the stock exchange. Sometimes early in the year, January, I think is it Ziggy's or something? I've forgotten the name right now. The price was just going high, and high. At the point in time, the Nigerian Stock Exchange had to freeze it. They removed it and then did their investigation and everything to be sure that nothing fishy was going on. And by the time they returned it, they slashed it by half. So you imagine you were buying when that thing was going up, and you felt it's like something is going on here, and you were buying. And then when everything calms down, the value drops. You already feel like you have lost money, because in the research you have lost money, right? But that's because you are not knowledgeable enough, or you are not patient enough to understand what's happening in the business before you buy into it. So the key caution is you need to avoid emotional buying and selling during sharp price swings. You need to avoid it. GT paid dividend. Was it last month or early this month, Sef? Same as MTN. It's possible some persons dumped their shares in GTB or in MTN late last year or sometimes back, and now those things have grown massively. So you need to be able to think very well, and good enough. We are believers, right? So you integrate, you do everything from the point of view of you being a child of God. So you are not just moving aimlessly. You're not just moving aimlessly. As you understand, diligently understand what is happening in the market, you prayerfully move into these things. And see, it's not so difficult if we are contented. Contentment is a key virtue that we need when we are looking at investment. So you do not go and invest in something that is clearly not right. We're talking about CBEX yesterday and the new one that just crashed again with MMM. See, when you want to gain overly impossible profits, you are not ready to calm down and get what God wants for you. That's when you find that you get lost in things like this. So please, you need to have some level of caution. Caution yourself when you're doing these things. If someone says, I there's one thing I hear that is bubbling now, think about it critically. Inquire critically before you commit your funds into it, right? So that your stability does not become unstable. For bonds, right? Fixed income exposure with steadier returns than equities, because bonds are they are loans essentially for the company that has issued the bond. So they would pay you back and with returns. That's simply the explanation on that. So it sort of guarantees you returns quicker and more steady than stocks will. So you see, we said it's best for investors seeking a more predictable portfolio because you can predict what it will look like, and it's medium term thing. It's not so long. So the key caution is that your returns may lag aggressive equity strategies or holding period matters. So you need to understand whose bond do you want to go into? How is the business performing? What do I want to get as return? And all of those criticalities, you may not be able to do that so much by yourself. And that's why we say for us as young men, young people, typically we'll just restrict ourselves to going into the stock trading apps, get the stocks, get the ETF, get the mutual fund, get the small kind of savings that you have within your piggy vest or your carry wise that gives you some form of returns. Even that's if that's all you can do, do it. This one is just for you to have more knowledge such that as you're growing in capacity, you can know that there are other things to move into. So you see, Treasury bill, they are short-term government bank investment instrument rather for liquidity and preservation. So you can consider those bits also. The money market fund that said that earlier, you can consider them. And what they are best for is also a key thing that you need to pay attention to. So if you have 100,000 in savings and you are saying I want to save it for school fees or I want to save it for house rent, you will be wrong to go and put that money in stocks. Like I've reiterated on this call, on this session, you cannot predict where it will move to. You cannot predict what will happen with the stock, especially when you are investing directly into the stock of companies. You cannot predict exactly. Everything might look good for the business. In fact, they might have an history of good value on their shares or dividend history, and anything could happen with the markets. So that would make you lose value on the money you invest. So you cannot have a short-term need that you want to meet, and then you are putting your money, investing it in stocks. The clear places that you can put such money is in the money market fund, which is typically your mutual fund, because it's typically within a period and you can even access your money at any point in time. Would there be a little bit of penalties here and there? Maybe, right? Some of them, it will be that the interest or the return you're supposed to get for a month, you will not get it if you do not wait until the time you can remove the money. But you go and put it in stocks. You put 100,000 in stocks. By the time you urgently need the money has the value has dropped down. It's now 80,000 that is what your 100,000 is worth. It's no longer worth 80,000. So it's no longer worth 100,000. And the flip side, it could now be worth 120, but you cannot predict it. So it's not good that for possible emergencies or for just a buffer for your savings, then or to have temporary cash holdings, you are now putting the money in stocks or bonds. No, don't do that. Put it in money markets. Put it in your friendly non-bank financial institutions. Hold it there so you can quickly get your money, because the liquidity is easier in those places or is better in all those kind of places. So that is a clear that's just sort of a me giving you clarity on how investment should pan, how you should consider investing, how you should look at your money, where you should put it. And this is just pushing for some sort of a scenario to us. See, a young salary worker in Lagos that receives monthly income and wants to build it beyond their regular savings account, he commits a fixed amount each month to carefully selected Nigerian listed company instead of trying to time the market. So this is a young man thinking about growing wealth, building wealth. The money that is putting into the listed companies, into the stocks of listed companies, is not money that he needs for short-term needs. It's not money that he needs to fix his house rent. It's not money that he needs to deal with having to settle family relations or your marriage. It's not money to deal with school fees of children that is coming up, but it is rather something that it does not need in the short term, but more for a long-term growth possibility. So you can say to yourself as a young man that every month or 10,000 naira every month, I will invest in stocks. I'll put in stocks. If that is what he's saying, he understands that that is for long-term growth, not for immediate or almost immediate gratifications or things that will turn around immediately. So he says he focuses on businesses he understands, follows company updates, and treats dividends as part of long-term growth rather than money to spend immediately. Someone that wants to get money, you want to build wealth, you cannot be going after quick rich, or how do they put it now? All those quick rich schemes. That's not what you're looking for. That's not what you're after. And you would not expect that money will just drop on your laps. You cannot be thinking, I invest 100,000, I want to make 1 million immediately, as soon as possible. No, that's not how it works. There is effort that you will need to put into it. And you see here, he focuses on businesses he understands. How would you understand those businesses? Is by following their updates. And the good thing about entities that are listed on the stock market is you can access their financial information. Now, you may say, I'm a doctor. You may say, I'm just an urban planner, or I'm just a scientist. I don't know anything about financial information. Good and fine, but we're in an era of all this artificial intelligence. You carry the financial statement of any of this company, put it on a typical AI tool, and you tell it to analyze it for you. It will tell you insights about what is seen in the financial statement, and it can help you to get an understanding of what you should do and what not. So those are ways to understand some of these things, and we understand principally that we have insight through God. We have insight through God. So it helps us, it keeps us contented. So you are not jumping into what you should not jump into. And you're keeping yourself rooted also. You are not just committing money haphazardly without clear vision of what you want to do with that money. Over time, this approach helps him build patience, reduce emotional decision, and develop the habit of disciplined ownership. The lesson is that stock investing works best when it is anchored in consistency, learning, and a long-term view, not speculation or social media excitement. I said it earlier that most financial or investment advice that you will see on social media, they will caveat it that whilst I've said this, it does not, I'm not saying you should go and do it, right? But it's an advice, because you cannot afford to be following everything. And you know the beautiful thing about Instagram, for an instance, is the moment you start checking a kind of post, the algorithm will bring more to you. So you may check a post now and you understand what the person has said you should do. As you scroll up, the next one, the person can be telling you, can be driving you in another direction. You scroll up, the other person is driving you in another direction again. Then you are just thrown into unnecessary confusion. But if you've anchored yourself to say, this is how I want to do it, this is the money I want to commit every month into these things. I want to see it grow. I want to see it move, right? You would find them turning around good eventually. I have a friend that we're talking recently, and was telling me that within just the last 1 year, he has been able to transform most of his portfolio We're not big men like that. How much do we have? But he has been able to get in returns on his investment up to ₦1 million on just using it. He's not using any stockbroker. He's just on Bamboo app. He's been able to get returns up to ₦1 million. That's not what he invested, though. That's the returns on his investment. So you need now that person has been consistent in it for years. The first year is did not get anything close to that. Not the second year, nor the third year, did not get anything close to that. So you need to understand that it's a long-term view, it's a long-term approach. So, and this is for someone that has moved away from struggling with even budgeting, struggling with even spending right. You have moved away from that point. You have overcome that to some extent. You are someone that has been able to deal with not being able to save. You are now learning to save. You are able to save. But you are now saying, I want to transform from my savings some into investment. So it's a continuum, it's a growth. You may not be able to move from you are terrible with your finances to moving straight to investing. It may not work. It may not. So, but there is the need for speed, for you to gain speed between the space of not being efficient or not being accountable with your finances to you moving to investing and getting huge returns and getting good returns. You can shrink the space in between those two by quickly committing to these things that we have talked about, that we are talking about, because it's very essential, right? It's very essential, right? I'm almost done with all of this. So if we have any questions, then we can ask, right? Crucial quick tips. You see, like I've said over and over, it's just more like a summary again, right? Build a buffer. Build a buffer. So once you want to invest, please don't invest everything. Please don't. So build a buffer for yourself, something that will cover immediate needs, medical needs, the need for one form of money there or the other. You have a card, there's a need for repairs that you may not have envisaged, right? The other sort of family shocks that may come in, right? So you are not forced into selling your investment at a reduced value and then you lose money. No, so build buffers, have savings for things like that. Don't go and pack all your money into investment because everybody is saying invest, 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 invest. No. So use your liquid options too. So instead of completely saving everything, because we said don't invest everything, you can divest that portfolio by instead of saving all, you can move into the money market, like I said earlier, because those ones are easily accessible. They have returns, but they are far liquid. They are more liquid than your stock. Don't mix your cash. Keep funds separate. I said this yesterday. I've said it again today. Keep funds separate. If you're going to save for a young man, you are coming into that view of getting married, you may want to be deliberate with your saving to IMAC funds and say this saving no is for wedding, this saving no is for house, this saving is for car, this saving is for school fees, this saving is for this saving is for that. Don't just have a pool of savings and you are just pouring everything. I'm saying it, and some person will be saying, how much am I making, or how much is my money, that I'll be able to separate it like this. Even in that little, learn to do that so that when the money gets plenty, it's easy to do. If it's that you are saying 10,000 for wedding, 10,000 for car, 10,000 for house, you're already learning how to properly do that, because when you are doing your budgeting, you would have considered that. You would have considered all of those things, and you understand that savings at the end of the day, they become income eventually. At a point in time, it will flow back to become income. So keep funds separate. Protect the plan that you are setting. Protect those plans. One of the key practical ways of you protecting the plans that you have set for yourself is that you do not spend money anyhow. That savings that you have, you now see one opportunistic purchase, you just go and dip hand inside it. You may not have a car at the moment, but you are saving, you have one saving somewhere that is meant for something else. And then one brother just call you one money and say, brother, I saw one opportunity. There's one car like that the owner there's a distress sale. Or you hear things like the owner wants to jack back, the owner wants to leave the country and is looking for quick money. So you now hear that this Corolla or this Camry 2008, they are selling, the person wants to dispose it for 3 million. And you don't ask question. You don't, someone wants to dispose 2008 Camry for 3 million in this economy. And you're not asking question where, but you just say, that's a good deal. Now go and dip money, dip and into where you should not dip at. Or it could even be that you have been saying to yourself, I need to leave this house that I'm staying currently. I don't like it again. Don't like it again. Then someone tells you, I'm moving out of my apartment in case you want to take it. And something you did not plan for, something that is not logical at that moment, that is not needed at that moment. You then go and dip your hand inside money that you have kept for something else. You have unprotect your plan by yourself. The reality is that action opens a room, opens a gap that should not have been there. You see, there are times when this kind of move will be very legitimate and be very logical, but you need to be able to look at them critically and determine that it is really so before you do those, before you take those kind of actions, before you jump into those kind of steps. Please don't just do things anyhow because everybody is doing it, because everybody is moving that direction and you just want to move that direction. Please, let's not do that. Lastly, right, just to wrap everything up, and it's just some of a reminder across board. See, clarify your purpose, choose your channels, review prayerfully and practically, set your foundation, and diversify with wisdom. These things you must remember. These things commit to others as well. If there is anything you would have picked from here, is that you clarify the purpose for why you're doing any of these things. If you're going to save, if you're going to budget, if you're going to invest, choose the channels that you will use wisely. And you see, even on your app stores, whether your Google Play Store or your Apple Store, there are tools for budgeting. Download them and start working with them. If you have downloaded them before, but you could not use it, take a deliberate action to learn about it. Set calendar reminders. Set reminders on your calendar to remind you to use those things. Set alarms for yourself. You see, you have to, it's a skill, so you have to inconvenience yourself to learn to become it so that you can be more faithful with your finances and you can become this person that you need to be. And I pray that the Lord will help us. Right. Now, if I was going to pick, lastly, just pick 100,000. So you have 100,000 that is flowing, that is just freely flowing, and you don't know what to do with it. You don't know what to do with it. And what would be a typical advice for how you need to go about it? I would say, depending on your immediate need, let that determine how much you would save. And typically, for ourselves, for an unmarried young man, right, who is cautioning his needs, you may want to save 50,000 of that, or rather, you may want to save 25% of that money to just put aside and say, in case I have emergency needs, right? This is after you have dealt with your needs for the month, you have dealt with family expectations, you have dealt with this, you have dealt with that. We're saying this is free flowing money that you then have, that you don't have anything to use it for, 100,000 naira. Separate 25% of it and take it into savings. And I would say don't take it into your traditional bank account savings. Take it into any of these other non-bank financial institutions apps, your piggyvest, your carrowest, that will give you interest on your 25% on your 25%, which is 25,000 naira at the end of the month. There's a likelihood you may be getting up to 100 naira or 200 naira interest. Maybe may not be up to that, but you'll get something close, right? On that at the end of the month. Imagine you just left that 25,000 naira over 12 months. By the time you're getting it back, it most likely would have grown into so if they were going to give you, let's say, 10%, 10% per annum, interest 10% per annum, very likely, maybe not. That is already 2,500 that has grown on your 25,000 without doing anything. It seems like it's a long time with little money, but imagine it is more money. That's how it will compound. That's how it will grow. So that's 25,000 naira of 100,000 naira. You have 75,000 naira left. You're a young man that is not looking at too much, right? You want to already start thinking about marriage. Why not carry the another 25,000 out of that and commit it to that? You're just looking at it on a monthly basis. I just want to commit it to that. The 50,000 that is remaining, commit it into investment. I would say look at your money market first because at this point you may not have so much risk appetite for your stocks. So commit maybe 25,000 or 30,000 of that to mutual funds. You have returns on the returns are also almost similar to what you would have on your pigvest, but much more, right? You have some form of returns on it, and you can easily access it as well. It's quite liquid as well. The remaining 20,000 or maybe 15,000 out of that 20,000, start learning what it looks like to go into the stock market, and you can start that with your ETFs. So if you don't want to go directly into the market by yourself, do with your ETFs because those have higher returns than your normal mutual funds, right? Try that. And then maybe the 5,000 that is left, go and trade one stock by yourself, buy one stock by yourself. You have spent 100,000 like that. Spent it to ensure savings, spent it to ensure targeted savings, and then you have considered something that will give you more returns than just your typical savings and something that will give you more returns more than your typical mutual funds, and then you're already moving into actual stock market by yourself. You have diversified your 100,000. It sounds very simple, may also sound complex to some persons, but in reality, you have just analyzed what 100,000 alone can be. And you'll be surprised that if that 100,000 is all that you have, that you did, in 12 months, when you come back to that same 100,000, that 100,000 could have grown to 120,000. Very possible. It could have grown to 120,000 because we have some ETFs that are returning 50%, more than 50% self. There are those that are doing the average, your ETFs are returning around a 50% because of the uptick in the market in recent times. So consider that rather than just keeping your money lying idle. And like we said, you are reviewing prayerfully and you understand that the reason God is committing these finances into my hands is because He wants me to be good stewards of them, to propagate His gospel, to ensure that His name is heard. Because at the core of it, I am an ambassador. I am an ambassador. I will keep that in our mind. And I pray that the Lord will help us in the name of Jesus.